welcome to All Steelers Talk, your home for everything Pittsburgh Steelers, presented by allsteelers.com.
What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another live stream. I'm Noah Strackbein. This is All Steelers Talk. Please toss all your questions out there. And as always, go subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk, or find our podcasts anywhere you get your audio podcasts, Spotify, Apple, iHeart, wherever you're feeling. As always, I'll be jumping on here for about 30 minutes till about 2 o'clock, answering all your questions, as many as I can get to. So please toss all of them into the live chat here on YouTube. A lot to talk about. You know, you obviously have Mike Tomlin and Kenny Pickett out here pleased, but wished that he would progress a little bit faster. You have injuries to Jalen Moore and Deontay Johnson being upset about his lack of productivity, his lack of targets. TJ Watt getting called out by a Bengals offensive tackle. There's just so much to talk about. Would love to dive into all of it with you guys. As always, please toss all your comments and your questions out here. I'll answer as much as I could in the next half hour to kind of give you guys some insight as much as possible. I think that we should start with Mike Tomlin, obviously, and saying that, for one, he does not care about Jeff Saturday or the decisions to make him a head coach. I thought that was awesome, because as much as I disagree with the Jeff Saturday hire, I do not like that other coaches call out anybody in the NFL. I think Mike Tomlin is a very level-headed man, always has been, and him staying out of people's business is always best for a team that is losing. You know, you're going to get fans that are upset either way, no matter what. I think this is the best opportunity to just avoid disaster. What I didn't like, or did like, but kind of think that it's time to get a little bit more aggressive with it, is Mike Tomlin is Mike Tomlin, okay? And they will never, ever, ever be able to, no matter how hard we try, pull anything out of Mike Tomlin that is just a little bit above calm. Never. So him to say that he's pleased with Kenny Pickett, but that he wishes that he'd progress faster, just like he'd hope, you know, Kenny hopes the same thing. It's not a slow business, blah, blah, blah. I get it. But at this point, you got to look at him and just say, look it. Yeah, we get it. You know, things are working in our favor. We're starting to move forward offensively. If we're going to turn this season around, he's got to pick it up, because that's the truth. You know, you need to say that to Matt Canada. And I think that was said to Matt Canada weeks ago. You needed to say it to Najee Harris. I think it was said to Najee Harris weeks ago. Now I think it's time to say it to Kenny Pickett. And just to jump into this right here with, I'm starting to realize Kenny Pickett isn't going to cut it as a franchise quarterback. It's way too early for that. It's way too early for that. You can never judge a rookie quarterback and say he is or is not a franchise quarterback. The dude's got 7 games under his belt, 6.5 games under his belt. You can't judge a franchise quarterback off of 6.5 games. What you could do is say, okay, this is where he needs to progress. And I think the Steelers, unfortunately, are in a situation where they don't really have time to waste. You know, they're 3-7 right now, and in everybody's head, this season is still alive. Mike Tomlin is never going to admit that this team isn't going to make the playoffs. Kenny Pickett, Najee Harris, the defense, everybody hopes that this season could still turn around, and the goal ultimately is to make the postseason. Kenny Pickett's got to play a lot better, and he's got to score a lot more points if they're going to do that. But there's other reasons for that. You know, the defense stunk on Sunday. It was awful. You can't give it up 37 points to anybody and expect to win a football game in the National Football League. That just doesn't happen. And at the same time, you know, yeah, guys dropping passes. George Pickens gave up at the end of that game. Deontay Johnson gave up at the end of that game. Kenny, you know, Kenny is not a very good quarterback right now. But to say he's not a franchise quarterback is way too soon. You know, you're only 6.5 games in. He only played half of one of those 6.5 games. So really 6 games in. You can't just say he's not a franchise quarterback. What you could say is that he's not ready to be a franchise quarterback yet. That would be a fair assessment. You could say that Kenny Pickett has a lot of progression left before he is a franchise quarterback. That would be fair. But to say that he doesn't have it, he's not cut out for it, it's too soon. It's way too soon here. You got to wait until at least next year. You're going to see, you know, like, and that's when you could tell. year 1 to year 2 for a quarterback, especially, is when everything starts to slow down because you understand things finally. Right now, Kenny Pickett was thrown into the fire and said, hey, learn to be a quarterback on the run. That's not fair to anybody. It's not like he was a veteran and this is like the Jets situation where if you toss Joe Flacco out there, he's done this for 15 years and it's just second nature. He's never done this before. He has no idea how to do this. There are concerns when you evaluate him to say, okay, well, look at, these problems were here at Pitt, especially, early at Pitt. Are they just revolving door things and it's going to happen throughout his career? Maybe, but don't count out Kenny Pickett as a franchise quarterback. Not 6 games in, because if that's everybody's mindset, and I get it, like it's hard to not have that as your mindset, but if that is everyone's mindset right now, then every quarterback that comes in here is going to be a disappointment, because nobody's going to come in here with a team that has a million gaps, that gives up 37 points in a game, that has a terrible offensive coordinator that for until 2 weeks ago didn't have a running game. I mean, that nobody's going to impress enough to say, okay, that's a franchise quarterback. You're never going to get Ben Roethlisberger again. That's the hardest thing to accept, is that there is a like 99% possibility that you never, ever get a Ben Roethlisberger again, who just comes in here and is immediately a Hall of Famer. Most guys got to develop into one, and you got to give people time. What do I think about the lack of Diontae Johnson's targets? I think it goes both ways. I think it's a little bit of Kenny Pickett. I think that he's missing Diontae, and Diontae's a very rhythm-like wide receiver. That's what made him and Ben so special, is because Ben knew exactly when Diontae was coming back to the ball. Ben knew exactly when to throw the ball so that Diontae Johnson was there. Those things happened naturally. Kenny Pickett is a very slow processing quarterback right now, and therefore, by the time Diontae Johnson's open and then not open anymore, Kenny's just getting to him now. And he's like, oh, never mind, he's not there. At the same time, I think Kenny's got a lot of tunnel vision going on, and that will go away over time. But right now, he's just so worried about not turning the ball over and following instructions from the offense that he isn't able to see things before the snap. At the same time, I think that defenses are completely removing Diontae Johnson from a game plan from time to time, and that Diontae is a hot route at times and should be hit, but those are very rare and far and few between, because defenses know that this guy can create a play almost any time, and they're going to get him out of there. They're going to get him out of the game plan. But I think it goes both ways, And that being said, I think Deontay's got to do a little bit more AB and do a little bit more of, okay, look at the pocket claps. Guys have to make moves. You have a mobile quarterback. That was what made Ben so special, is he was able to escape the pocket and then find guys still moving around. That's what made Heath Miller, in my opinion, a one-day Hall of Famer, is because he never stopped moving. Antonio Brown never stopped moving. Diontae Johnson stops moving. And he's got to learn that, okay, look it. It's not always going to be immediate. I got to keep it going, because if I get open, Kenny will find me. It might be, 6-7 seconds after the play, but he will find me. And I think that's huge, is you got to start doing that. If that happens, things will turn around for Diontae. I'm not disappointed in Diontae. I think Diontae gets way too much criticism for how good he is. Mike Tomlin's crutch was Big Ben. That's why Tomlin was successful. Now that Ben's gone, I mean, this is like a classic hate on Tomlin comment, and I get it, but every NFL team's got to suck. And if you don't admit that every NFL team's got to stink, you're going to be very disappointed for the next 3 or 4 years. Very, very disappointed. You completely missed the before Ben era. You completely missed the 90s, at least most of the 90s. You didn't stick around. I mean, people use that. You could use that for every single coach. I mean, Bill Cowher won 1 Super Bowl, lost 2 AFC championship games at home. Coaches don't always win Super Bowls, and teams always have to suck. That being said, there are a lot of holes on this team. Just to agree with you here for a second, there are a lot of holes on this team that the Steelers avoided and were able to avoid because of Ben Roethlisberger and his ability to win games, that you are now seeing. Like, they have not drafted well in the last couple of years because, And you could see that now. Miles Jack is not a long-term solution. Larry Ogunjobi is not a long-term solution. The cornerbacks are not long-term solutions. The offensive line is not a long-term solution. There are so many missing pieces to this team that you should have dealt with, and you didn't. And that's on Mike Tomlin. I will give you that one. I heard DK Pittsburgh Sports say Kenny Pickett might just be a backup. Do you agree? I don't think so. Not yet. Like I said, it's way too early for that. I think that if you put that in your head right now, you're never going to get over it. And that's what concerns me is you put that narrative out there that Kenny isn't good right now. And you just say, well, he's never going to be good. Then in your eyes, he's never going to be good. And I'm not just calling you out or anybody else out or DK out. This is my opinion too. Like, this is how I view things. If I tell myself Kenny is not good, I will have the hardest time admitting when Kenny actually is good. It's the same thing with Najee Harris. I refused to say Najee Harris wasn't good because I knew at some point things would start to turn around for Najee Harris. And if I already put it in my head that Najee stunk, then I would have the hardest time getting out of that narrative. I want to do the same thing with Kenny Pickett. I think it's way too early right now to say, oh, he stinks. It's over. He's a career backup. I want to give it time. The Steelers are not a Super Bowl team right now. It stinks, but it also allows you to evaluate Kenny Pickett long-term and say, okay, well, next season, we'll see what happens next season. Because if you think about it, the Steelers have to make so many changes this offseason. Like, they have to find cornerbacks. They have to finalize their offensive line. They have to find inside linebackers. They have to find a defensive tackle. They have to find probably a third safety. They have to replace Terrell Edmonds if he doesn't re-sign. You gotta do so many things this offseason that a quarterback can't be very high on your list. So it allows you to walk into next season and say, all right, well, look, this hole got filled. This hole got filled. The Steelers added 3 quality draft picks. The team's much better. How good's Kenny Pickett at this point? And if he stinks again next season and you're in a Zach Wilson situation, well, let's hope somebody sticks around or they go out and sign a quarterback bring in a Joe Flacco. Bring in that true veteran who you could toss out there and say, look, he honestly, he probably won't win you a Super Bowl, but maybe, magic happens with guys like Tyrod Taylor and Joe Flacco. Those things just happen sometimes. So I'd say right now, too early. But the Steelers are in a good situation to take their time with this. And I think that's important. Just going through questions here. The problem with the Steelers offense is that they aren't very talented wide receivers. Let's be real, they're average or below average players. I agree with this one. I think the Steelers don't have the talent that they need. Offensively, they have a terrible offensive coordinator. I think you could get away with subpar talent. But at the same time, I don't think it's subpar talent. I think it's early development talent. Pat Fryermuth's in his second season, and he's already making waves. He's going to take a huge step next year. Most tight ends don't peak until they're 30. Travis Kelce and George Kittle don't come out of the woodwork at 23. Pat Fryermuth's got a major jump on that. I think he's a guy that's just going to get better. Najee Harris, I'm not giving up on Najee Harris. I think Najee Harris is going to be fine, but he was dealing with a lot mentally and physically at the beginning of the season. I still think he is. And then you got George Pickens, who's a superstar in the making. I think Deontay Johnson is one day going to be the best number 2 receiver in football because I think he's a number 1, and I just don't think he gets the credit. And then if you could turn Calvin Austin into something, if you could turn Steven Sims into something, you have talent. It's just very young talent. It's a development process. Like, nobody comes into the NFL and it's just like, all right, well, there's a bunch of second and third round guys. Let's go win a Super Bowl. You got to develop those guys. So I think it's early, but I do think that the lack of talent's definitely there, and it's something that gets overlooked. But it's how you address that. You got to be realistic about it instead of just expecting everybody to be dominant. Cowher won it all once he got a QB. Yeah, it's very true. I think Tomlin would win it all if he got a QB as well. I'm not trying to take away anything from Bill Cowher when I compare the two. I just think that Mike Tomlin gets a lot of hate that, and Mark, me and you have gone back on this a lot of times, and I appreciate it. But I think that Cowher kind of gets used in a lot of ways of like, oh, well, this didn't work. This didn't work. It's a process for everybody. I think everybody's got to do their process. I think Tomlin was blessed with a Hall of Fame quarterback, no doubt, but he's had 7 months with his new quarterback. Things aren't going well. If 2 years from now he goes and wins a Super Bowl, then he did exactly what Bill Cowher did. That's what we have to look at. Let me get rid of this real quick. I've been saying Pickett is a backup since day one. I think you just need the interviews, and I am in the locker room and I do have interviews. I don't know what this is about. I think Mason, I like Mason as a person. I think he's a good dude, a very quality backup. I'm not going to compare a veteran Mason Rudolph to a guy who's played 6.5 NFL games. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's what I'm trying to say is like, it's hard to put this into a thought of like when you're arguing with somebody who already has the thought that it's over, you're going to have a hard time changing that thought, and I just have the open mindset of it's 6.5 games. Like, do you know how many people stink for 6.5 games? Do you know how many people probably sat here and had those same conversations about guys like Josh Allen, guys like Peyton Manning? Oh, these guys stink. It's over. It's done. Peyton Manning's the worst number 2 pick of all time. You know how many people probably did that? And then look at them now. And there's probably a million of those quarterbacks. I feel like it's just too early to just sit around and start comparing them to people and anything. Like next year, definitely. Next year's a whole new story. This year, just critique his development. Don't critique. Don't compare him to people, especially veterans. How do I feel about Najee Harris? I think Najee's going to be fine. I think Najee was more mental than anything. My thoughts on Najee Harris have stayed the same pretty consistently. I think Najee was told at the beginning of this year, because we all told him that the defense is going to keep games close. They're going to put the offense in a situation to win. The offense is going to win through Najee Harris. Najee Harris is going to carry the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. He's going to be the best running back in football. Well, you said all that. And we said all that, me included, big part of me. I pushed that narrative heavy. Last year, he dealt with a line that let him get beat up bad. It's really hard to stay confident behind those guys, especially when you have new guys and now you have no faith in those new guys yet. I think Najee's biggest issue was the fact that, yeah, he was dealing with injuries, and I will use that as an excuse. But the biggest part, I think, is the fact that he was so in his head about, I have to win us games. We are not winning because I'm not winning us games. And everybody told me I have to win us games. That's got to be tough. And when you get into that mental rut, you get the yips. That's what happens. I think he got the running back yips. I think it'll come back. I think it is coming back slowly but surely. I think the fact that the passing game is now open helps that a lot. But I mean, it's got to be tough to have all that pressure on you. That being said, it is not an excuse big enough to be as bad as he was. At no point as an NFL are you as an NFL player are you allowed to use, oh, well, mentally I had too much pressure on me as an excuse. So he does have to turn it around. Let's keep it rolling here. The Steelers have not returned a kickoff for they have not. I think Steven Sims is going to break one, though. You got to remember, like, Ray McLeod was like all talent at the beginning, and then he just died off. The pieces are all there. I think you should can Canada. Oh, I agree 100%. 1,000%. I don't see any reason to keep Matt Canada at this point. I don't even understand the process of, oh, well, or the thought process of, well, you just do it now. And then you put Kenny in a tough situation. So you don't really want to do that. No, he's in a tough situation. What's worse than having a bad offense and nobody that could teach you how to play offense? Like, you're going to learn how to play offense from the worst offensive coordinator in football. You have examples. Juju Smith-Schuster left and said, look, I learned more in 2 days here than I learned in 5 years in Pittsburgh. We had terrible offensive coordinators in Pittsburgh. Kenny Pickett's going to fall into the same trap. You don't even have to hire anybody right now. The only reason that I would say don't promote Mike Sullivan is because fans are going to get upset when the offense stinks and Mike Sullivan's calling the plays. And then you're going to put him in a tough situation to say, well, I don't really want to come back here because everybody hates me. So I don't really want to be your quarterback's coach anymore. And I would get that you don't want to lose Mike Sullivan, but like, it makes 0 sense for Matt Canada to still have a job today. None. Do I think Najee Harris will pick it up after the Bengals game? Yeah, I do. I think that this is just an upward hill from here, and it's just going to keep going. Like, I have no worries that Najee is going to turn this season around. I never have. Like, I think Najee is a good running back who works very, very hard. And like, he went to Alabama. So that's already a bad narrative on him. But I think he's going to be fine. I do. I really do. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. I appreciate everybody who's on here, for real. Like, keep it coming. I'm trying to do some stuff for you guys as well. Like, I would love to start doing like take-in phone calls and video chats with people. Those are all things in the works. Especially as the season starts to come towards the second half, that I would love to start pushing out, early in the off season or late in this season, just to kind of connect with a lot of you guys more. So please, anybody who's open to, hey, I want a video chat. Hey, I got this question. Hey, I got that question. Hit me up on Twitter. Always hit me up on Twitter. I'd love to chat anytime. And people who already do that know that, I answer as much as I can. I get real busy, no doubt. I covered three sports. I'm at if I'm not at the Steelers practice or at Steelers games, I'm at Penguins games, or I'm at Pitt practice, or I'm at Pitt basketball or something. But I try to answer everybody as much as I possibly can. So I appreciate you guys. So what's going to be the reason when the rookie card for Pickett runs out? There is no excuse for that. If the rookie card for Pickett runs out and next year he's just as bad as he is this year, that's when it's over. That's when you have to admit that he's not good. But right now the rookie card's still very much in place. And that's my thing. Is like, it's not next season. We're not next season yet. We're not even next summer. Like, this is 6.5 games in. So right now the rookie card's very much so in place. When that rookie card runs out, it runs out. And then you could say, well, he's not bad. But like, what if it goes the other way? What if he walks into next season and he's a much better quarterback? Then everybody's going to say, well, we jumped the gun on Kenny Pickett. I'm just saying, it's a rookie card. It's a rookie card. You got to be able to use the rookie card. A left tackle or Sauce Gardner? So I like this question because I think it could put into perspective, what the Steelers should do in the draft, a left tackle or a cornerback. And that's a tough call. But I think that at this point, you got to build your offensive line. It's been way too long. Way too long. I get that the defense is struggling and you're going to need cornerbacks. You're going to need to find somebody. But, you can't pass up on a Paris Johnson. You just can't. Like, it's been so many years of the Steelers avoiding first round offensive linemen, and it's come back to bite them year after year after year. David DeCastro was the last time the Steelers picked an offensive lineman in the first round. David DeCastro. You got it. You just got to invest in it. Look at the best offensive lines in football. They invest in their offensive line. You got to invest in your offensive line. And you have pieces. Like, that's the thing. Like, if Mason Cole is here to stay for the next 3 years, that's a piece. If James Daniels is the future at right guard, that's a piece. Chooks looks like a good right tackle. That's a piece. You get a left tackle and then you go find a left guard maybe later in the draft or something. That's a piece. That's your offensive line. That's huge. That's a total game changer for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Alrighty, still looking here. Oh, DB or guard. See, I should have got to this one too. So guards the same way. My thoughts the same way. Like, I would love to see corners here. And I think it's the argument for the same side. Like, you haven't drafted a cornerback in the first round since Artie Burns, and you've seen what's happened here, and you develop guys like Cam Sutton's a third round pick. You saw like he's a quality cornerback at this point. You need to invest in both sides. I think that's the best part about this. Like right now, if the draft happened today and the Steelers sat eighth and then had, I think, 34 and 38 in the second round, in my opinion, if I'm sitting on the draft board and everything works out to perfection, my first pick is Paris Johnson. My second pick early in the second round is Joey Porter Jr. And then from there, you have so many options. You just addressed two ginormous needs for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Maybe you use that third one and trade up into the first round again. And if you could get up early enough, I mean, if you can move into the top 15 and somehow Noah Sewell slides there, and I get that inside linebackers are risky that early, but that guy is worth it. Think about the holes that you just fixed. Huge. But I still think offensive line has to stand superior over anything. It has to. If you get a good offensive line, you could do so many things. Like so many things. Think about the teams that have like really, really good offensive lines and that were just really bad, and have just like really bad teams. The Colts before Jonathan Taylor showed up were a good team with nobody, not a soul. They had a really old T.Y. Hilton, but they had a great offensive line. The Dallas Cowboys. I don't know what you think about Dak Prescott, but they held that team together because they have a good offensive line. Just works all the time. Is it time to start looking for a Mike Tomlin replacement? No, I don't think Mike Tomlin has lost his hunger at all. I think that it's just the NFL life cycle that's getting to him, and he deserves a lot of criticism because it's the NFL life cycle, and he has not filled a lot of holes, but every team hits this point. It's just about how well you could get out of it, because if it's going to take 5 years to get out of it, you got to start talking about, okay, what changes need to be made. And frankly, a coach is usually very high on that list. But on the other side of that, if it takes 2 years to get out of it, then you're fine. Then everything's fine. But I don't think he lost his hunger. I think he's just in the bottom of the NFL life cycle, the really, really tough part. And he hasn't done the correct things in the last couple of years to get out of it. And I'll definitely hammer him for that one. You should have drafted offensive linemen. There was no need to get a running back in the first round last year. There's a billion reasons that he is screwed up. But I mean, I'm still going to stick with the fact that I think Mike Tomlin's a great head coach and that you have to give him a shot. This is the first time he's rebuilt the team. So if he could do it in a year, if he could do it in 2 years, I mean, that just solidifies the dude's a Hall of Famer. If he can't, and it takes 5 years, 6 years, you got to get a new head coach. Didn't Cowher have 3 losing seasons? Cowher struggled a lot during his NFL tenure. He was an up and down coach, especially towards the end, and then he got Ben. Like the dude at one point, what do you have? 3 quarterbacks, and they all started within like 5 games, 6 games. This third last season or something. I mean, coaches struggle, teams struggle. That's just part of the gig. That's just part of the NFL. Like every team struggles. The Steelers have been very, very blessed. And I think that they have the organization and the power and the, experience to get out of this faster than most teams do. But you just got to let it happen. Like you just got to accept like, dang, this sucks. And then just try to find the good parts. Think about it like this. And somebody pointed this out to me the other day. If the Steelers and everybody around them have admitted that this team is a rebuilding team, then scoring 30 points against the Bengals is a huge win. You conducted 30 points of offense, and your team looked terrible in the second half, which means you put up 30 points without even looking good. That's a huge win. But the fact that the Pittsburgh Steelers are the Pittsburgh Steelers and everybody holds them up here, and we're having such a hard time admitting that it's a rebuild year, then it's looked at as a huge loss. It's all about the narrative. It's all about how you look at things in the perspective. And I think right now the perspective has to be this is a rebuild team, and you could take so many positives out of them. You would enjoy watching games so much more if we sat down and said, oh my gosh, they just scored 30 points. That was awesome. The offense actually took a major step forward. Najee Harris looks good right now. You could pick up on those things, but instead we're all stuck on the negative because it's the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they, along with us, are having a very hard time admitting that. Oh, Wiley, what a question, my man. I love your opinion on Matt Canada. Do you think he ever stumbled upon your content? Have you ever ran into him in the locker room? So I interview Matt Canada every single Thursday, along with all the other beat reporters. Him and Terrell Austin talk every Thursday morning. I'll wish him a happy Thanksgiving this time. And me and Matt have no hard feelings towards each other, at least not that I know of. I've talked to him many a times. I've talked to his agent many a times just to make sure that everybody's on good terms. And I just, opinions are opinions. And that's the thing is if Matt Canada was very good at his job, I would never sit here and say that he's not. But I have to be straightforward. I have to be honest, and I have to give my opinion. My job is to not be biased. And I try very, very hard not to be biased. And when it comes to Matt Canada, right now he's not very good. And the offense is not very good. And it's been 2 years of very, very bad football for the Pittsburgh Steelers offensively. And that's his fault. So I will give that. But no, I don't think there's any hard feelings. Has he stumbled upon my content? Yes. I'm actually like 100% certain that maybe not him, but the people in his team have stumbled upon my content. And, I hope that they enjoyed the rest of it. Thoughts on Jaylen Warren? Love Jaylen Warren. That is a great dude. First of all, he is a very, very great human being. I think he'll be fine. I don't know if he'll go Monday. Hamstring injuries are tough for running backs, but I think he's good. I think he's going to be very good. He's got a great work ethic. The first time I ever talked to Jaylen Warren, he told me, I was like, what's your expectations here, whatever. And he's like, I'm just trying to be myself. He's like, since day one, nobody has given me a shot. And since day one, I've proven everybody wrong. And I'm going to continue to do that. I've always been the underdog. And I said, all right, very cool. Very cool. I like that. And he's proven me right every single time. You guys who have been on here through this entire journey of the season know that I was very, very high on Mateo Durant coming into training camp. And then Jaylen Warren just blew that all up. So I think he's going to be good. I think he's going to be fine. I think him and Najee are great 1-2 punch for at least the next year or two, and then we'll see what happens from there. All right. More Kenny Pickett. I got about another 5 minutes, guys, just to let you know. Paris Johnson or the tackle from Northwestern. So I'm a big Paris Johnson guy. I have to do more research. I don't not even 100% on who you're talking about here, and that's on me. Derek Bell, though, we do a show live on Fridays, and if you pop in there and toss that question into the group chat, I promise you he will answer it and he will give you the best rundown available. The guy is a draft wizard. The guy is the best in the business, and I tell him that all the time. And he'd have a great answer for you. I apologize that I don't, if we're being honest. Dan Moore would look a billion times better at left guard. And I think that that's a possibility to move him inside and get a left tackle, but he is not made for offensive tackle in the NFL. He's just not. Like, it's so visible and so obvious that he's just too slow. He's not powerful enough. He's not athletic enough. He's got to be a left guard. And with Kevin Dotson struggling, I think that would be a good move for next season. Will it happen? I don't know. But I think year 3, like, you're still early enough in your career where you're not changing sides of the football and you could push him inside and maybe he'll, have a hard time adjusting for a couple of games, but I think then he'll get it. And I agree. I think he'd be a much better guard than he would be a tackle. 100%. Keely Ringo or Joey Porter Jr., Ringo all day. I love Joey Porter Jr. I think he's a superstar in the making, but he's a second round pick and Ringo is like a top 10 pick. And Ringo's nasty. Like, just he's a Sauce Gardner. He's a big, lengthy dude who, it's just like you look at him and you're like, how are you playing cornerback, man? Like, were you created in Madden? Or is that where you were sculpted? I think he's going to be phenomenal. But I think the Steelers have a great opportunity to get Joey Porter Jr. And I'll tell you this little insight. Joey Porter has spent a lot of time at the facility the last month or two. And you got to wonder why. You got to wonder what those conversations were and have been. And, how many times his son has been brought into that discussion. Why doesn't anyone ever talk about getting a top center? Any of our great teams are anchored by a center. I agree with that. I think that you should have got Creed Humphrey last year. Hindsight's 50-50, obviously. The center class this year is not very good compared to years past, which is tough. But I think that's okay because I also believe that Mason Cole is worthy of another year. And then after that, his contract would expire. And if the center class in 2 years is way better than it is this year, that could definitely be high on the market, and I think that could work out well. But I agree with you. You need a center. My point stands strong. It's not just left tackle. It's if the Steelers used a first round pick on an offensive lineman for the next 4 years, I would have no problems with it. None. I think that would be the best idea possible because you need offensive linemen. Build the offense, then go and build the defense. You got to use both sides. But the Steelers have a very, very somewhat easy time finding stars on defense later in rounds. They have a very difficult time finding stars on offense recently in later rounds. So use your first round picks and go get stars on the offensive line and then go jack up the defense. Jalen Carter or Bryce Breeze? Jalen Carter. I think Jalen Carter and Will Anderson are in the same group where I think Brian is like the next step down. All top 10 picks, in my opinion. But I think Carter, Carter was better than everybody on that line last year. And what do they have? I'm not even going to toss a number out there, but I know they had a ton of defensive guys go in the first round. And I think Carter was better than all of them. The dude's nasty and he's just going to get better. He's less of an edge rusher, more of a just dominant inside guy, but I think he could replace Larry Ogunjobi and not miss any steps whatsoever. No, my man. No doubt. No doubt. When is the earliest you would consider a wide receiver? Yeah, maybe round 4. I just think that the Steelers have enough of them right now. George Pickens, Deontay Johnson. You definitely keep Steven Sims. I think you definitely keep Miles Boykin. Gunner, if he's cheap. Calvin Austin's coming back. You have options, and I think you could utilize all those options well. I think Connor Hayward is developing more into a slot guy than he is a tight end. I think that could work well. I don't think that you have to reach for a wide receiver. That being said, I fully understand that if the Steelers have their way, they'd probably take one in round 2. It's just because that's what they do. But I would say round 4. It's a good move. Candidates for offensive coordinator. See, I think it's too early right now. You have to see, because the hardest part is evaluating the position coaches. You have to evaluate everybody else's quarterback coach, all those guys, and say, okay, well, this guy is available. This guy wouldn't be available. I haven't had time to do that. And I'll be honest there. I want to have time to do that. I've thought about this quite a bit and I've been asked this quite a bit. I haven't. And that's where you have to look, because you're never going to get an offensive coordinator. You're never going to just go get another offensive coordinator. You have to get somebody who's below that and turn them into one. And I think that there's options, but I have to do more diving into it than to say, oh, this would be my ideal candidate for this year. So I apologize on that one, but I will at some point have an answer for you. I promise. Just going to get 1 or 2 more here before I head out. My man, I appreciate you. Sorry, guys. Where do you think we'll end up in the NFL draft? I don't know. I think that there's still a possibility you win a couple more games this season and then you find yourself, 12-15. But I think the best case scenario is a top 10 pick. Unfortunately, that's a win. That's better than just missing the playoffs, in my opinion. Unless you're going to pull it off, but that's if you believe it or not. Frank Reich would be a great offensive coordinator. I mentioned that before. People didn't really agree with me, but I think Frank Reich is a great offensive coordinator, and he's a veteran. That's what you want for Kenny Pickett. Go get somebody who's done this before. Go get somebody who's able to develop quarterbacks and turn offenses into just units. Frank Reich has done that before. 100%. Do I cover the Pirates in the summer? I don't. That's the only Pittsburgh team I have yet to cover. I'm having a hard time saying I want to cover them. Maybe if they get a little bit better. I haven't been approached about it yet by SI or by Fan Nation. But the rest of them, yeah. All righty. I think we've covered pretty much every one of them here. I appreciate you guys so much for jumping onto this. This was great 40 minutes of Q&A. I'll be back every Tuesday with this, and me and Steven are actually about to jump on and record tomorrow's podcast, so please check that out tomorrow morning. All Steelers Talk. Subscribe to us, All Steelers Talk, or youtube.com/All Steelers Talk, and it'll be available on all audio streams. And then, as always, my to-go will be out there. For anybody I do not talk to between now and Thursday, have a phenomenal Thanksgiving. I hope everybody has a great holiday and enjoys it. Make sure to subscribe to us, like this video, check everything out at allsteelers.com. As I just said, enjoy your holiday. I'll be back tomorrow. Peace.